friends, Sandi MacIver here from Stampin' with Sandi and Stamping and Blogging, and I have a little project for you today. Last week when I posted this card, I had a couple of inquiries and people wanted to know how I did it. So I did a new one today and I'm going to show you how I did it. I'm going to be using 3 stamp sets to make this card: Gorgeous Grunge, World of Dreams, and Work of Art. When you choose your colors for your card, make sure that you have coordinating markers that go with them, because we're stamping on 2 layers, and where there's a difference in the layer, you're going to get a little halo effect, a little white spot, and you want to be able to use a coordinating color marker to fill that in. So my black is done with the Memento. You can use Stays on Black if you want. I just like Memento because it's easier to clean up. And my color choices for this card are Pear Pizzazz, Costa Cabana, Lost Lagoon, and Blackberry Bliss. And of course, I have markers in all of those colors. My little art piece is actually created out of a piece of Whisper White, and I popped it into the Scalloped tag topper to get the fancy little top on it. Okay, and the piece of Whisper White is 2 by 3 3/4. For the sentiment, you're going to need a scrap of the Pear Pizzazz, and I'd say about 1 1/2 by 3, and I stamped my sentiment and then I ran it through my Big Shot with the bitty banners so that it would punch out that little guy for me. So this card is completely done in Whisper White cardstock. The card base is 4 1/4 by 11. You're going to score and fold that at 5 1/2. What I call the card front is another piece of Whisper White, 3 3/4 by 5, and of course we're going to be using the tag that we just made, which was 2 by 3 3/4. Okay, so we're ready to start our stamping on. I just wanted to show you what I've got off screen here. I've got my stamping scrub and cleaner because I need to change colors in between each one of these, and so you scrub it on here and dry it on the other side and you're all ready to go on to the next color. It's an awesome tool and I always have it handy. Alright, so to set this up, we want to add a tiny little bit of snail to the back of the tag that we created, and we're going to attach it to the card front. Okay, and let me just hold that up so that hopefully you can see where I've got it. I've got it a little bit over to the left and kind of centered from the top to the bottom, okay? And I have my ink colors lined up here from lightest to darkest, and I have my Pear Pizzazz in the middle. So I'm starting over here, and the first stamp is going to be on an angle with the right side down, right over top of my tag and onto my background. Now see what I'm talking about, that we get a little halo around the edge of the tag? It's because there's a difference in height between the paper, and so that's what we need to fill in with our markers when we're all done. Okay, so moving on to the Pear Pizzazz, inking up my next color, angling my stamp a different way, and pressing firmly but not rocking it because I don't want the outside edges of the stamp to show. Again, more halos, but that's okay. And it's also very cool when you overlap colors because you might end up with a third color, just the way it works out. And Lost Lagoon is my last color, and I'm angling back again and stamping with the right side down again. Alright, so there you go. That's where you start. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to bring in our markers and we want to start filling in the little halo effect. And because this is not as kind of a solid image stamp, you don't have to be super solid about coloring it in. And when there's an overlap like this, I didn't put the blue in, I put the green in. So I'm going to switch over to Pear Pizzazz, and I'm just going to come along and color that in, and back over this side, do the same thing. And the blue starts here, so the blue is darker, so that time I did put in a little bit of the green, but I'm not going to smear my Lost Lagoon in it for a sec. I'm going to let it dry. So I will finish over here first, and then come back over here and finish up this little guy. And like I said, it doesn't need to be perfect because you've got really rough edges on the stamped impression anyway, and I also like to feather it in a little bit. And it looks kind of wiggy right now, but it does dry quite nicely, okay? So now we're going to switch over to, I think we'll use Basic Black next. So I've got my Memento I'm going to use as my black, and I've got these pretty little birds. So that's my kind of main feature on my art piece, and so I'm inking it up as well as I can. And I'm going to stamp it right over top of everything. And push down, but don't rock it. Try and get it as firm as possible, because that will help with these halos that are going on here from the difference in the height. Okay, so this little guy, you need to come in with your marker without dog hair on it. There we go. And fill that in. This little leaf needs to be finished, as does this little guy over here, and this little stem. And that's about it. Pretty good. All right, so now we can use our darkest color, which is the Blackberry Bliss, and I'm going to be using the blotch, this little guy, and you'll remember that this is from Gorgeous Grunge. And Blackberry Bliss was a nice color to use. I like the combination. The one thing I did do before I did this step though was I actually brought the card in and I placed my art piece right on top of the card, and here's why. Because I stamped off right onto the card base with this blotch, okay? So I think that adds a little bit of extra element to it and a little bit more interest when you do that. And this one I didn't glue down. I just held onto it with one hand and stamped with the other. Okay, so I stamped here like that. And again, I'm going to get the halo. No worries. This guy, I turned this way and stamped him kind of both ways. And this guy up the top, I also caught the corner of the tag and stamped him there. So again, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to bring in my coordinating marker and I'm just going to fill in these little halos. And I'm not moving anything until this is done because it lets me know where everything is and makes it easy for me to do that. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to separate our tag, so you carefully pull on that. And now this is not attached at all, but it can now be. So I'm going to use my snail on the back, and I decided to make this flush because the tag is sticking up, and I'm trying not to cause myself a whole bunch of extra postage, so my first layer is going to go down flat. Just like that, so I'm lining up my little blob down here. Turn that over and give it a little burnish. For this little guy, there's a couple of things I want to do to it before I actually tie it down. And the first thing is I'm going to take a piece of this beautiful Lost Lagoon ribbon. I love this stuff. Just popping it through, pulling it up. Then I'm going to take a piece of linen thread, and about, I don't know, 12 inches long is usually what I go for. And I'm going to wrap this around the top. And I use the sticky that is on there to hold it onto my work surface for me so I can do this. And so tying in a knot and then in a bow. And then I'm going to pull my tails until I get the loops the size that I would like them. That's pretty good. Trim off my ends. And we're ready for some dimensionals. Okay, so I want to trim my ribbon, and then I've got my dimensionals on the back, and what I'm going to do now is place this little guy back down. So you have to be careful, and you're lining up all the places that you just stamped to lay this guy down. Okay, so I'm ready to add my sentiment, and I have got the U, plus I have got my sentiment that I stamped and die cut out already, and this is actually from Work of Art, Just For and You are there. Okay, so you can see where I got them from. And I have a dimensional on one side on the back, and on the left hand side I'm going to add a glue dot. And the reason I'm doing that is it's going to go down the side here, okay, and there's a level drop. And I want to make sure that my sentiment is flush. The first thing I'm going to do before that though is I'm going to sneak in this little U. So there I go, I got that stamped, and then that helps me with my placement of this other part of my sentiment, just like that. How cute is that? All right, so we need to bling it up a little bit, and this card is already pretty busy, so we're going to keep it to a minimum. I'm just going to take a large rhinestone and put it right there. Then I'm going to take one of these little guys and put that there, and another little guy with my pokey thing, and it's going to go right there. So there you go. All right, so let me bring in my original. There we are. And this is the one I did for a challenge last week, and that told me which colors I wanted to use. For this guy, I decided on my own colors, and I'm kind of like blues and purples together. I always have. And then I wanted something that was going to pop, and that's where the Pear Pizzazz came in. So there you go. That's how I made the card. It's really not that hard. It's just kind of fun, and I think once somebody shows you how to do it, then you can just run with it. So have fun. I hope you enjoy making them. Thanks for hanging out with me today, and we'll see you again soon. Happy stamping!